Thanks to Noom for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. It's not too late to kick off your year right. Stay on track to meet your New Year's resolutions and meet your goals with Noom. Noom is designed for results, so sign up for your trial today at Noom, that's Noom.com/AG. What do you have to lose? Visit Noom.com/AG to start your trial today. Again, that's Noom.com/AG. Start losing weight for good. And thanks to Ritual for supporting Mueller, She Wrote. Better health doesn't happen overnight. Start your year with Essential for Women, a small step that helps create a healthy foundation for 2019 and beyond. Visit ritual.com/AG to start your ritual today.
So to be clear, Mr. Trump has no financial relationships with any Russian oligarchs.
That's what he said. That's what I said. That's obviously what our position is.
I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate at a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians.
What do I have to get involved with Putin for? I have nothing to do with Putin. I've never spoken to him. I don't know anything about him other than he will respect me. Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing.
So, it is political. You're a communist.
No, Mr. Green. Communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist.
Hello, and welcome to Mueller, She Wrote. I'm your host, AG. With me, as always, is Jaleesa Johnson.
Hello.
And Jordan Coburn.
Hello.
This week is packed with news, and it's only going to start getting heavier, you guys. So if you know anyone who usually hides from the news, but wants like a simplified version of the facts coupled with wild speculation, which we call super space beans, make sure to send them our way, and we'll sort it all out for them. Do you guys have a good week so far?
Yeah, good week. It's raining, as you can probably maybe hear in the background. It's been a cold, blustery week.
Yes, there's nothing we can do about the inclement weather. Some rain and 62 degrees is what we consider a blizzard here in San Diego. So if you listen, it'll be nice and relaxing. Here, let's see if we can hear it. Okay, there it is. So now we have the room sound. We have room tone. And guys, you want the news. Sometimes a little rain must fall. This week, Jordan, you're going to cover an interesting New York Times interview with Trump. And Jaleesa, you're going to talk about Papadop's new job and how it's all about gouging the masses by selling them overpriced weed.
Did you ever see the back of a $20 bill, man?
No, I don't know, yo.
Did you ever see the back of a $20 bill on weed?
We also want to remind you guys about some upcoming live shows. The first one is March 29th. It's at the Miracle Theater in D.C. And there's two kinds of tickets for this. There's a general admission ticket, and then there's a VIP ticket. And the VIP ticket gets you into the general admission show and the meet and greet, which includes a cocktail hour right before the show. So check that out. We have links on our newsletter and our website and our Facebook page for that. We also have March 30th at the Bell House in Brooklyn, and we have VIP tickets for that show as well, but they're sold separately. So if you want to go VIP meet and greet, you'll need to buy the general admission ticket plus the VIP ticket, and patrons get a discount on that VIP add-on. All the information is at our website, so visit MuellerSheWrote.com, and we will see you there. We did email out for the Brooklyn show a code, MSW. Oh, I can't.
You guys don't get to hear it.
If you're a patron... You can get that code in the newsletter and on the closed Facebook group. I'll just let you all in for free. Not for free. Anyway, take that. Make good. Anyway, if you're not a patron and you want the special deals and pre-sale opportunities for our live events, sign up now at patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote. Please note that depending on the venue, some let us have VIP discounts, others let us do pre-sale. They're all different, so we're sorry we can't offer the same deals at all the venues. It's kind of up to them, but as a patron, you also get ad-free main episodes, the midweek episodes. Now we do 2 episodes a week. It's a full hour-long episode that comes out Wednesday nights. You get access to all the bonus minisodes, the book club, the entire archive of all those, the premium newsletter, which includes all the articles we reference every week, and my own personal research notes. And there's also a bunch of great gifts. And guys, that's all for $3 a month. So, and once we start our daily show called Daily Beans, you'll be automatically enrolled in that Patreon too. So you get both. We just need a couple thousand more patrons to reach that goal. So think about it. But I think we can do it. We're real close. So sign up today. Also, the Manafort ringtone is up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all proceeds go to Voices of Our City Choir. That's where you can get the fuck ringtone that was recorded for us by Voices of Our City Choir. That's a choir here in San Diego for homeless people, which is amazing. All proceeds go to them. Jordan, where can they get that?
So if you have an iPhone, go ahead and go to iTunes and then look up Manafort is ... and it will be the first result for ringtones because lots of people are buying it. So it's up there in the search results, which is nice. And then it's kind of a weird link if you're an Android user that you can just go to my Twitter, and it's one of my first posts on there that says, here's the link for the droids. It's like some weird website called like Tune. I don't know, something. Anyway.
Yeah, go to @JordansConfused.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you can go on my Twitter, @JordansConfused, and believe everything I say, first off, and disregard the handle. And second off, you can find, it's like the first or second post on there.
It's more of it confused about like life in the universe, not
right at an existential level.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
guys, we have no corrections from last week, which makes me think y'all were busy, because I never make it through an episode error-free. But if you have any corrections, send them to hello@MuellerSheWrote.com. Let us know if you don't want us to read your name on the air. Guys, we have a ton of news to get to, so let's jump in with just the facts. All right, guys, the news in Roger Stonehenge this week was extensive. We learned that a third location was raided by the FBI, one of Stone's storage lockers in Florida. Maybe that's where he stores all of his rocks. I don't know. He sells rocks, by the way. He signs his name on a rock and he'll ship it to you.
Mm-hmm. Roger Stones.
I want to order like 100 of them because they're only $8 and see like what he has to pay in shipping. I think that'd be funny.
Don't give him the money, AG.
It's just funny to me.
He's gonna get kidney stones one day and get made of relentlessly.
I know.
Ooh,
and what good is my money if I can't spend it on fun stuff? Yeah. Like making him pay shipping on rocks. Anyway, they raided his home and his office and his storage locker. All these guys seem to have storage lockers. We could make a killing starting self-storage for colluding traders.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a big neon sign that's like, no sketchy shit in here. And arrows literally everywhere else.
Bad credit, treason.
Not treason lockers. Nothing to see. In other Stone news, the Mueller team is signaling to one of Stone's associates that another indictment is probably in the works. A defense attorney for Andrew Miller, that's the guy fighting the Mueller subpoena, was told Monday that Mueller wants testimony from Miller for the federal grand jury, making it clear to me and many other experts, that Mueller and the Justice Department are considering additional superseding indictments of Roger Stone and a plan to possibly charge others. And the reason why here, guys, is that the grand jury, once it's done hearing a case for a crime, it's done. You can't bring in more witnesses to testify once the grand jury's already decided to indict. So if they're bringing in a guy who's going to testify about Stone, that means they have to be working or at least considering a superseding indictment on Stone himself, right? No shit. Mueller extended the grand jury for 6 months a few weeks ago. He wouldn't have done that if he didn't need additional testimony. And a superseding indictment, by the way, it's just like any other indictment. It must be obtained the same way as the original indictment through a grand jury, and superseding indictments can include different charges, new charges, or they can add new defendants. Manafort got some superseding indictments slapped on him a while back. That's going to keep happening because as soon as we pull all this collusion together, everybody's going to be named again. That's why we keep hearing it's part of an open and ongoing investigation. That's part of an open and ongoing investigation. And that's why you hear Trump supporters going, you got nothing. None of this has been about collusion. None of it's been about that. And it's like,
nothing birder.
Not
nothing
yet.
Birder. Yeah, because you can't yet. He's going to do. Never mind. You know what? I know how investigations work. You know how investigations work. They don't. Fine. Let them wallow in their stupidity. I'm really spicy this week. Sorry. So if I say something that offends somebody, like Junior put up an old Kamala Harris tweet where she said something about Governor Northam in Virginia and fighting racism and bigotry. He's the guy who appeared in a photo in his yearbook with a black face and a Klansman's robe.
I think he's the one in the robe.
Good.
And he must be because now he's saying he's not in it. And how's anybody going to prove he's in the robe? But so Don Jr. took that tweet of Kamala Harris and said, well, this is awkward and didn't age well. And I said, are you talking about your brother? And everyone's all, ooh, AG's
spicy.
Sweet, sassy molassy.
Ugh. That is hilarious, the hood thing. I mean, it's not hilarious at all. Obviously, it's awful, but that defense that you can't identify who it is.
That press conference today.
There's not much you could say back to that. I didn't see it yet.
Oh, it's bad. He's like, well, it wasn't me. If it was me, it wasn't me.
Right.
But I did do blackface dressing up as Michael Jackson one time.
Oh my God.
Did you see him almost moonwalk like for a moment? Like,
he almost tried. Yeah, they were like, oh, can you still moonwalk? And his wife thought that's not an appropriate question right now. And what's really funny is all the comedians on the San Diego comedian page are all like talking about doing Michael Jackson blackface. And as we all know, Michael Jackson bleached his skin going forward, so he pretty much wasn't black anymore. And everyone's like, it was 1984. You would have had to have done blackface to do Michael Jackson, because 1984 Michael Jackson
actually was still black.
Right.
Yes.
So
he did whiteface. That was
he
crazy.
did do whiteface. I know. I was sitting on that comment, but I'm like, I'm not gonna say it.
It's the truth.
We're just gonna set him up for you, Jaleesa. You can knock him down.
Yeah, alley hoop.
Yes.
Alley hoop.
Alley hoop. Anyway, I think we're gonna get that big conspiracy indictment group of aiding and abetting. I think we're gonna get it. Tuesday, Stone pleaded not guilty after the hearing was delayed for an hour and a half because Stone's lawyers can't get their shit together with their paperwork. The day before arraignment, a minute order issued by the judge reminded the lawyers they needed to file their forms to designate a sponsor licensed in D.C. They fucked up that paperwork in true Trump supporter style, and they spent the entire next morning trying to get it right. Oddly, one of Stone's lawyers is the same guy who repped NWA back in the 80s in their First Amendment case for explicit lyrics. So Roger Stone's out on bail without paying a dime, by the way, and I was mad about this on Twitter. And Renato Mariotti and I will have this bail discussion today in this show at the interview at the end of the show. So stick around for that, because I'm angry that rich people don't have to pay bail. And so he explains it, and he's so great. He's like, I'm not telling you how I think it should be. I'm telling you how it is. So anyway, stick around for that.
Yeah, the bail system is so fucked up. Just a little side note. I went to jail once because I didn't pay a speeding ticket, and so there was a warrant out for my arrest, and they arrested me. And I went to jail and then went to court, but it was a webcam courtroom. You don't even go into a real courtroom. And then basically you just walk up to the television, and the judge on the other side, the TV, proceeds to just ask how much you could possibly afford. Like, they tell you, what your bail is set at. And then everyone is like, well, I don't have that. And then they're like, well, what can you give today? That's literally
zero.
All they're doing. Yeah, that too. Like, well, all of my assets are in a locker currently, so you took them before
I'll show you a titty.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the old school
I guarantee that's happened,
I know
especially in a Las Vegas jail.
Yeah, a couple of guys. It doesn't work for them, though.
You know, there's some girl like, hey, baby, pulling her shirt up.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
But yeah, the bail system, profits off of all just chump change, every day when these not innocent people, I guess that's the nature of them being there, but
I mean, some of them are.
Allegedly accused.
Yeah, but, why does Roger Stone not have to pay anything of his $250,000 just promising he'll show up to his court appearance? But that's
my long-winded point, is that all the, people that don't have that money,
they don't take your word for
being
it.
held accountable. Yeah.
And what, do people think that, Roger Stone has more to lose? I don't know.
It's just fucked up.
He's pretty losery. Finally, Stone appeared Friday in Judge Amy Berman Jackson's courtroom, and she weighed a gag order. And she warned him not to treat the charges against him like a PR campaign or a book tour. She reminded Stone that it behooves him to shut the fuck up because anything he says in public can be used against him in court. Everybody knows that. It's been on TV a lot. And his bullshit he can taint the jury pool, right? With his shit. So she's given both sides until next week to weigh in on the gag order. If you recall, she gagged Manafort in his trial after his dumbass lawyer shot his mouth off in front of the courthouse following his first court appearance. And then he went on to write an op-ed with a Russian. We'll keep you posted. Judge Jackson, bless your heart. I don't know how you deal with these folks, but I just love that Stone pulled Jackson.
I like the picture you posted of her. She looks like a cool soccer mom type, but she's badass too. I never knew what she looked like until you tweeted that out.
Yeah, and that's why I did it. I was like, I don't think people know what she looks like.
Yeah. It's just not what I had in mind, but it's cooler this way.
She's got her pearls and everything.
Yeah.
She's a nice lady. She looks like a nice lady.
I'm sure she is too, but she doesn't take any shit.
No. She's justicey as hell. So Tuesday, Rep. Jackie Spear. Oh wait, we do have a correction from last week. It's Spear, not Spire. So thank you for that. And Jordan, you actually had a correction from the midweek episode.
Yes, from our midweek episode, we were covering the NRA, and I referenced the insurance that the NRA offers to their members, and I had said that it was for the wrong party, and then it was corrected by one of our patrons that it's actually they'll give the insurance to the person that shot someone. That's what they offer.
Got it. So not the same as the T-shirts they hand out.
Right.
Which is so ridiculous to me. Anyway, so Jackie Spear sent Steve Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, a letter this week asking him about a deal he made in 2017 when he divested from his motion picture company called Rat Pack Dune, which is dumb. It's such a boomer thing to call your company. Anyhow, Rat Pack Dune, he sold his shares to his partner, Mnuchin did, for $25 million, and his partner was Len Blavatnik. And if Blavatnik sounds familiar, let's take a listen to an episode of Mueller, She Wrote called Crossfire Hurricane from last May. Jaleesa, can you roll that clip?
Oh, yeah.
We learned that the GOP took $7.5 million in donations from a Russian oligarch named Blavatnik. The super PACs for Trump, McConnell, Rubio, Scott Walker, Lindsey Graham, John Kasich, and John McCain accepted money from the Ukrainian-born Putin-tied oligarch. Blavatnik owns a big part of Rusal. That's the giant aluminum company partly owned by, you guessed it, Oleg Deripaska. It's the same aluminum company that Trump aides are negotiating the sell-off of Deripaska's shares in exchange for an easing on sanctions. So, interesting dot.
That was the worst list I've ever heard.
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Huh. So Blavatnik gave $7.5 million to McConnell, Graham, Rubio, Kasich, and Scott Walker during the 2016 campaign. He bought out Mnuchin, the Secretary of the Treasury, for $25 million, and he owns a bunch of Rusal shares. And McConnell, Graham, and Rubio took Blavatnik rubles and voted for lifting sanctions on Oleg Deripaska. So, yeah. And we knew all this last May. And in fact, we got the reporting. The first guy, I think the first people who got onto it were the Dem Coalition and Scott Dworkin at Thunder on Twitter back in, I think, February. And then the Dallas Morning News put it out in May, and we picked it up. And it's in the news now because sanctions have been lifted on Deripaska now this week. Additionally, after Mnuchin lifted the sanctions on Deripaska, one of Deripaska's companies added 7 new directors to their board, including Chris Burnham. He's a guy who served on Trump's transition team and worked for Bolton at the UN. What? I'm going to listen to the rain for a second because it's so frustrating. Okay. We also had discussed in episode 48 that Mueller had a stint where he was stopping and frisking all kinds of Putin-tied Ukrainian-American emigres at airports in their private jets. Remember? That was Blavatnik, was one of those guys, and Vekselberg, an in-trader. Vekselberg has ties to Herman German Kahn, and he was, I call him that because we went through a long thing. Don't worry about it. And he was at the Bank of Cyprus when Wilbur Ross ran it. So, whoa. And Vekselberg gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Trump inaugural, by the way. And remember Sam Patton, who's been indicted? He bought 4 inaugural tickets using a cutout and got reimbursed by a Putin-friendly oligarch. Mm-hmm. I think probably Intrader or Vekselberg are the ones who acted as that cutout. Those are beans, not facts. I mean, Sam Patton was indicted, and he did buy $50,000 worth of inaugural tickets using a cutout, but it doesn't say who the cutout is. I'm guessing it's Intrader, Vekselberg, or Blavatnik. It's one of those guys. And don't forget, we reported in episode 30 that Avenatti released video of Intrader, Vekselberg, and Cohen meeting at Trump Tower during the transition. Intrader is the guy who owned Columbus Nova and dropped $500,000 into Cohen's slush fund called Essential Consultants. It's fucking essential. So that's that guy. So knowing all that, a bipartisan bill was introduced in the Senate this week by Grassley and Blumenthal, bipartisan, called the Transparency Act. And that allows special counsel reports to be released in full to Congress and the public. But given all we know about McConnell and the other GOP senators I mentioned taking Russian money from dudes who they voted to lift sanctions on, and that Mueller has stopped and frisked all those dudes at airports and is looking closely at their ties to the 2016 campaign and the Trump inaugural, do you really think that McConnell will let this legislation pass?
No.
So everyone can see what Mueller found?
He's doubling down.
No, I don't.
It's his life on the line. I feel like it's more than his career. I mean, this is like criminal investigations. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think so. In fact, I think the vote will mirror the Senate vote that allowed the lifting of sanctions on Deripaska, provided McConnell doesn't even block the vote altogether. So
yeah,
with his shell. Sorry.
Like Mario Kart.
Yeah.
He just drives by and throws his turtle shell at him.
Oh, yeah.
A little later on Monday, Matthew fucking Whittaker made some public comments about the Mueller probe. I wish he would keep Mueller's name out of his mouth. He made some comments saying that Mueller's nearly done and should be issuing his report soon. And then, as though he knew he shouldn't have been commenting on an open and ongoing investigation, 8 gallons of water poured out of his giant head like someone gave him a swirly in one of his big dick toilets. Yet he continued blathering on, saying he's been fully briefed on the investigation, and he says that he looks forward to Mueller delivering the final report. And he went on to say something like, I really am not going to talk about an open and ongoing investigation otherwise, but the statements I made, but here I go to talk about it, but the statements I made were as a private citizen with only publicly available information. It's completely unimaginable to me that he'd comment on this investigation at all. And speaking of improper investigation communication, Jordan, you reported this Wednesday in our midweek episode that Barr talked to Pence about Mueller.
Yeah, apparently it was kind of not super, climactic in nature, but he did admit that they had talked to each other a couple times, but more so just about procedures and personnel. Nothing really too juicy about the investigation itself. So there are seemingly not too many beans there. And especially since his verbal testimony matched his written testimony, so he's kind of avoiding suspicion at this point.
Yeah, but given the crazy, ridiculous outcry from the Republicans when Loretta Lynch talked to Bill Clinton on the tarmac in an airplane for a few minutes, why are they cool with this? It just makes no sense to me.
Yeah, especially since he had that memo in June of 2018 that basically refuted the accusation that Trump may have obstructed justice by firing James Comey. So he already has officially done things, that would show his cards and where they may lie a little bit. So you would think they would be more scrutinable.
Scrutinious.
Scrutinious?
I don't know.
What am I
scrutinizing?
What the hell?
They would put more scrutiny? I don't know.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying.
Yes.
Put some more scrutiny on it.
I think they'd look into it more.
Yeah.
And speaking of Matthew fucking Whittaker, he's slated to testify publicly to Congress February 8th. Also, Monday, Adam Schiff says Cohen has agreed to testify February 8th with the House Intel Committee, but that's behind closed doors, since his public testimony was called off by Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, who represents Sabotage, because of viable threats from Trump and Giuliani about his father-in-law, And if you want to know who his father-in-law is, I went into that in detail in Wednesday's midweek episode, so check that out if you missed it. Cohen also has dumped his legal team completely, incidentally, so no more Guy Petrillo. And he was a Southern District of New York guy. Instead, he hired 2 dudes from Chicago. He's probably trying to save money now that the bulk of his case is over with. And speaking of Cohen testifying to the House Intelligence Committee, the committee finally seated their Republican members, which means Mueller could conceivably get the testimony transcripts to Mueller. Wait, sorry. Mueller could get them to Mueller. Mueller could conceivably get the testimony transcripts from the House Intel Committee by Tuesday, February 5th, this Tuesday. And as you know, the GOP had delayed seating its members, which may have cost Mueller a lot of precious time. Dems, who now hold the majority in the committee, have vowed that one of their first acts would be to release more than 50 witness interview transcripts to Mueller. And as it turns out, Mueller's had the unofficial transcripts the whole time, pretty much. But according to Adam Schiff, you can't bring charges unless the committee authorizes the official release of the transcripts like they did with Stone and Cohen. Committee rules require that any business meetings must be set with 3 days' notice, and those are 3 government days, not 3 regular days for people, which means the earliest they could meet would be Tuesday, February 5th. And that's a full month after the start of the 116th Congress. So they've delayed the Mueller investigation by a month. So I want that money back. February 5th, give me my money back, Republicans, and my T-shirt.
It does allow us to exist as a podcast for longer.
True.
I think that's the weirdest. Hey, at least we get to, no.
Yeah.
And by the way, I had a little argument online. It happens. With a guy who was mad at Mueller for taking so long. He was pissed that Mueller was taking so long, and he's like, fuck Mueller, blah. And I was like, whoa, dude, why are you mad at Mueller? And he's like, because Trump's still president, all this shit's happening. And I'm like, yeah, Trump's president because of us, dude, not because, and Russia, not because of Mueller. Like, why are you blaming Mueller? This is, he's like, well, why don't you tell that to the kids who've died in internment camps? And I was like, how about you have the 100 million voters who didn't vote in the last election tell it to those kids? Because we get the government we deserve. This is government by the people, right? Now everyone's like sitting up and going, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
But like blaming Mueller or being mad at Mueller is like if somebody shot your mom because you left the door unlocked and then you're yelling at the surgeon because he's not sewing her up fast enough.
Exactly.
Right. It's like a classic example of when these things happen that are out of our control. We turn against each other, sort of, trying to make some sense out of it all, and that doesn't really do anything except have infighting be a thing. I don't think anyone is suggesting it's good Mueller's taking this long or that it wouldn't be better if it was finished up quicker and Trump was gone sooner. I feel like that's understood universally.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, considering the scope of this investigation and there's only 14 people working on it, like, it takes a minute. Watergate took for it. We've talked about this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, everything in bureaucracy takes forever, notoriously.
It's designed that way on purpose.
Exactly. But it's also designed that way so that when they come to a finding, it's really, really hard to reverse it because they've been so thorough with how they got to that point.
Yep. It's because if he had, if he goes ahead and releases the indictments he has, that could wreck his whole case. So just chill. I promise.
Yeah.
I promise everything. Listen to the rain. I promise everything's going to be okay. I mean, not for everyone, and bad shit's happening. I understand that. I don't want to belittle that. There's terrible Rome is burning, basically. But the justice system will prevail. And I'm sorry, it takes a while.
Right.
I'm not sorry. Fuck you.
I imagine Mueller's going as fast as
it
he
just
can.
takes him. He is, and he's really good. So, anyway, and he's not the end all be all too. He's going to come out with the facts. It's going to be up to us what we do with them. So
exactly.
Let's not rely on him for everything. Okay.
Right. Yeah, and again, if they just haphazardly blew through this investigation or something, it'd make it way easier for something to happen again and for there to be more kids that die in essentially internment camps, and it could be
Trump
way worse.
Get reelected, and we'd have 4 more years of this.
Yeah.
So,
yes,
it's important that it's done correctly.
Right. And yeah, sorry.
No, it's cool. That's it. But also, February 5th is when they meet, right? And that's when they're probably going to get those transcripts over to Mueller. February 5th is also the same day as the State of the Union address, which was supposed to be the day the Senate voted to confirm Bill Barr for Attorney General, but that vote has been postponed, much to the chagrin of Matthew fucking Whittaker, I'm sure, who was probably hoping Barr would be confirmed before he has to testify on February 8th, so he would have an excuse not to. Yeah, you heard right. The Barr vote has been delayed because Democrats want a stronger commitment from him to make the Mueller report public. During a hearing on Tuesday, Dianne Feinstein said that Barr's indication that he would write a separate report that he would provide to Congress instead of Mueller's report is something that needs to be fleshed out. And we'll keep you posted on the story as it progresses. I haven't seen any updates as of the time of this recording.
I'm glad they're holding their ground on that one.
Yeah, the Dems aren't effing around this time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I abbreviated fuck that time.
The one fuck.
I'm practicing for regular radio.
Oh, yeah.
No, we're not.
F.
F it. Also this week, Judge Ellis, crazy-ass honey badger from the Rocket Docket, canceled Manafort's sentencing hearing as his determination of breach of plea roils on in the D.C. courts. That hearing about his breach of plea is in D.C. February 4th. So February 4th we have the hearing. February 5th we have SODU. And we've got the Schiff sending the transcripts over. February 8th we've got Whittaker unless Barr gets confirmed. And we've got Cohen's closed-door testimony. It's a nutty week this week.
Oh,
so
yeah. That's our Super Bowl.
subscribe now. Yeah, there's a lot of sports things happening this weekend. And I'm just trying to get my fantasy indictment league together. And then Tuesday, the Armed Services Committee began its investigation into Trump's deployment of troops to the southern border just before the midterm election. Remember how he put like 6,000 people down there? And Maddow pointed out something really interesting. Trump's been making claims that women are being dragged across the border with tape over their mouths, duct tape and electrical tape. Trump aides have tried to verify this with Border Patrol without any luck. They can't find any instances of this occurring. And that's according to Vox News. He's also said that Mexico has amazing, fast, incredible cars. They're big and fast, and they outrun our Border Patrol, and they can't possibly catch them. And then finally, he said that they found prayer rugs. Remember that? Insinuating prayer rugs mean Muslims, and Muslims mean ISIS, which, what a weird connection to make. Well, check this out. All 3 of those things, prayer rugs, duct tape on women's mouths, and big, amazing Mexican cars that outrun the Border Patrol, all those things are plot points in a movie called Sicario, Day of the Soldado. So Trump might have gotten all of his wall talking points from a movie. And the Dems in Congress are going to investigate that to see if his troop deployment was based on necessity or if it was bullshit. We already know the answer, but they're going to...
Yeah, how would they even prove that?
by
showing there's nothing there.
Yeah, by trying to saying, show us your evidence that there's an emergency at the border.
Right.
Show us your evidence.
It's reminiscent of the WMD thing, that whole decade.
Oh, that was a fun time. Good times.
My childhood.
I'm going to put some beans on Trump declaring an emergency during his State of the Union address on Tuesday so he can steal our money for disaster relief to pay for his wall. The Dems will sue him at that point, and they'll probably win, so don't worry. Justice will prevail. We learned Tuesday that Trump and Putin had another secret meeting with no staff or U.S. translator present. This one was at the G20 summit in 2017, not the most recent one, but the one before. And it marks at least a half a dozen secret meetings with Putin we had to learn about from Russian state media. The reason you don't want to meet with an adversary without staff present is because someone like Putin can then tell the world you advocated for something you did not, and you would have no proof to cover your ass. So, for example, if Putin wanted to come out and tell everyone that Trump had agreed not to withdraw from Syria or not to oppose Maduro in Venezuela, which Putin does, he can totally say that, and Trump can't dispute it. Not to mention the timing of these leaks about secret meetings between Trump and Putin from Russia state television. It's interesting they would report a year-old meeting right when Trump came out with his anti-Putin Venezuela plan, which is definitely a Pompeo and Bolton joint. It's not his idea. Mm-hmm. So I just have this picture of like Bolton and Pompeo being like, let's get Maduro out of there, and he's like, no, Putin's gonna love it, I swear. Yeah. Just, oh, okay, in that case. Like, that's what they always say. Putin will love it. Anyway, Russian state television can release these secret canoodles if Trump isn't acting the way they want him to. That's called leverage, and it prevents our president from acting in the best interest of the American people. And did you see the giant bitch slap Putin handed Trump this week, by the way, when he revealed that Kim Jong-un is his new side piece?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty great. And they've been negotiating denuclearization in the Korean Peninsula for over a year, just like Trump thought he was doing that, right? And that shows what a weak position Trump is in, and that it's detrimental to our allies and our own national security that he's that weak. How Trump supporters can't see this is beyond me. I don't understand how they can't put that together. There was also a brief NRA update this week. Jordan, you were mentioning that with your correction. Mm-hmm. Jordan covered in the midweek episode. I think the news part of that update was that the NRA is trying to distance itself from Russia as the Mueller probe marches on, particularly former executives and presidents saying that they opposed the 2015 NRA trip to Moscow with Butina and Torshin.
Right.
Is that pretty much the gist?
Yeah, even though the ties are extremely explicit.
Very.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't do the deal.
Right.
That's because that's how Russia operates.
And they're sticking to their guns on the $2,500 of reported campaign donations from Russia or people that are linked to Russian bank accounts.
Sticking to their guns.
But yeah, so hopefully the Mueller will be able to get the IRS tax returns.
I'm sure they have them.
Yeah.
And all this is comes amid signs of money trouble. Like they stopped giving free coffee to their employees.
They did.
And gun control groups are now outspending the NRA.
Yep.
In the midterm, that's the first time that's ever happened since the NRA's been there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And go ahead.
Nothing.
Oh, you.
Oh, sorry. I just breathed heavy.
Sticking to your gun.
Only on the in-breath.
We're just breathing to cover the rain sounds so you can't hear it. We're always going to keep talking and making sounds. Then Thursday, we got word that the two block calls Don Jr. got after the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016 were not directly from his dad's phone. Sources told reporters, I'm a little weird about this, told reporters that they came from two different people, a dude named Howard Lorber, and that's a funny name. I feel like you should say it like Droopy Dog. Lorber. Howard, I like that guy. And NASCAR CEO Brian France. Both of these guys are really good friends with Trump Sr., and Howard Lorber is one of Trump's best friends. He was a campaign advisor, part of Trump's inner circle. He has significant ties to Russia and even traveled with Trump to Russia to help him with some real estate deals because he's a real estate developer. And he speaks with Trump regularly. So this is one of the guys Trump Jr. called as soon as he learned the Kremlin wanted to give his dad stolen Clinton emails, and we're supposed to believe it's exculpatory. So to me, and I agree with Seth Abramson on this, he put a big thread out on Twitter, Lorber is now a witness, and the revelation in no way exonerates Trump. It actually makes it worse for him, especially since we know Trump has a tendency to sit in on calls to others on speakerphones, right? Mueller has the Trump Tower videotapes, and I'm sure we can easily find out if Lorber or France were in the building that day because we know Trump Sr. was. And I just picture like Lorber sitting up in Trump Sr.'s office with him and taking that call from Don Jr. and putting it on speakerphone. And if not, I'd like to know if Lorber or France made any calls to Trump or his office or Rona that day.
Mm-hmm.
So put some beans on that. This part of the investigation isn't over. And even if it was, like even if this is the truth, there's still nothing barring Junior from walking up the stairs to his dad's office and talking to him about it, or the millions of other ways he could have communicated with Trump about the meeting. I just find it odd that it leaked. It seems like a red herring to me. Like, oh, you've eliminated one way that your son could have told you about this, so there must not have been any.
Right. It is kind of a bummer, too, though, even if they can corroborate that, some phone calls went to Trump conceivably, they can't corroborate the content of the call, really. So all they could do is just be like, yeah, the timeline would match up. We don't know what they talked about, though.
Yeah, unless they unless they were wiretapping him. I don't know.
True.
They might have had a FISA warrant on Trump.
Yes, thank you, Patriot Act.
Yes. It reminds me of this old Batman thing Burns sent me, right? Where one guy picks up there's one guy in an office, he's got two phones there, two old school phones, and he picks up one and picks up the other and then puts them together so that the people are talking to each other on the phone. I just picture them doing some dumb shit like that because they're, they can't tech.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's the facts for the week. We'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies, it's not too late to kick off your year right, so stay on track to meet your New Year's resolutions and meet your goals with Noom. Most people who lose weight, they gain it all back, and that's because weight loss plans, they just tell you what to do while you're on the plan, and there's no plan for what to do afterwards. But with Noom, you lose the guilt and you learn how to develop a new relationship with food, so that's super helpful. And not to mention, everything that you need is in the palm of your hand. You have a nutritionist, a weight loss coach, a motivating group of community of other Noom users. You get a step counter. You get to put your exercise in there. You get a food log, and then you get all these cool lessons and tricks and tips. And they use, psychology and stuff to help you not just lose weight, but change your lifestyle.
Yeah, and if you're really busy and you don't have the time to read every single word, they actually anticipate that busy people are using this, and they highlight the really important parts of the articles. And it's all very useful information. They talk about cortisol levels, psychology of, how you plate your food, and it's all a healthy view that is smart and intelligent and easy to follow.
Yep, I lose about 2 pounds a week on this, which is a nice, good pace for me. And what's really cool is you go online, go to Noom.com, take their 30-second online evaluation, and it shows you how much weight you can lose, and you put your goals in, and it kind of tailors a program for you. It's absolutely wonderful. I can't say enough good things about it. My specific goal personally is, we're going on tour on March 30th, and I'm an 8 in San Diego, but I'm like a 6 in New York, so I need to... I need to get there. And for me, it's not just about losing weight. It's about feeling confident. It's about being healthy. And it's about maintaining that and knowing in my mind that, if I have a cookie, the world's not going to end.
Definitely not. And it's good for the world.
It is.
You.
It is. It's good for the world and you. So Noom is designed for results. Meet your resolutions by signing up for your trial today at Noom. That's Noom.com/AG. What do you have to lose? Get it? Visit Noom.com/AG to start your trial today. Again, that's Noom.com/AG. Start losing weight for good. All right, welcome back. Hot notes. All right, guys, welcome back. Today, Jordan has a fancy Trump interview with the New York Times. But first, Jaleesa, you have an update on Papadop. What do you got?
Yes, from the coffee pot boy to just the pot boy. On Wednesday, CNBC reported that George Papadopoulos, fresh out of his 12-day stint in federal prison, has already landed himself a new job on the board of advisors at a pro-Trump medical marijuana company called C3 International.
Wait. 12 days? Did he get out early on good behavior?
Actually, he cashed in on 2 days that he spent in jail before the official 14-day sentence. So, yeah, he was a good boy and also, I guess, a smart boy. Because I know you could do that. And can felons even sell weed? I guess he's on the advisory board, so it's not really selling it.
It's
He's
we
advising.
should all call the federal cops on.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah,
I think
Pause
it's
the
Sessions.
episode. Think about this.
I think it's actually cannabis. I think they might be doing CBDs.
Exactly. They're doing these
is that it?
pills. Yeah. So the company makes like a concentrated type of weed pill, and they say it offers an alternative to opiates and narcotics. And now that I think about it, if your target audience is Trump supporters, you probably do have really strong weed, right? Like,
yeah, you definitely have a lot of opiates.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was thinking. Oh, go ahead.
No. Go.
Are you sure? I was just gonna riff on like some potential names for like their weed strains, like No Collusion Kush. Or presidential OG Coffee Boy Haze. I don't know. What were you gonna say, Jordan?
Coffee Boy Haze, yeah. Kush didn't collude Kush.
Just Kush.
There you go.
Really?
Yeah.
Right?
Like
Yeah.
couscous. I like that. Kush.
Or Cushy Life for all the wealthy OC people. Because it's an OC, right?
OC?
That's where he's living, I'm pretty sure.
Orange County?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, this company is in California.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably Orange County.
Yeah, I think he moved into one of the wealthiest places in
Cushy
California.
life. I like that.
Which we flipped blue. Woo!
Yes, we
Hell
did.
yeah.
Mike Levin, what up?
Hey.
Yeah,
Represent.
It was just me and you. We knocked on doors.
Yeah.
we did one time.
It counted, guys. That made a
did.
difference.
And every
Yeah,
time
yeah.
we went there, they were like, "We've seen 17 of you today."
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah. And they're like,
Wow.
don't worry, we're not voting for the a-holes. Thank you.
That's all we need to hear. So they have this pill. It's called Idrisil, which kind of sounds like Idris Elba.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say.
Yeah, Idrisil.
It's not allowed to play Bond in the next Bond film.
Right.
That's for sure.
Because of racism. I don't know. I don't really know what the argument is.
Me neither.
Yeah, probably race. But they said, quote, this is the first standardized form of medical cannabis, which at first sounded like bullshit to me. I thought that like saying they're the first standardized cannabis, like I'm an avid stoner. Like I go to all these dispensaries. I see weed pills all the time. But I think what they're saying, or maybe what he's saying, is that like he might know something we don't know. And so I imagine maybe the Trump administration would like kind of crack down on pot. You don't think so, AJ? You're
He's
shaking
full
your
of shit.
He could be.
Here's what he's doing. He's trying to justify selling it at the price he's selling it at.
Well, yeah. So the thing is that it costs for a 30-day supply of Idrisil, it's $500,
Oh
and then
my
for
God.
I guess a standard case of 24 bottles, it's $12,000.
Dude, hello at Mueller, She Wrote. We can get you a better deal.
Yeah. No, seriously.
Yeah. Although I do like the idea of giving Trump supporters a bunch of marijuana. Maybe that will chill them the fuck out.
Well, this is already a pro-Trump marijuana company.
Exactly. They're already smoking, so I feel like it's not working. Maybe it's making them more paranoid.
Yeah.
I would imagine
That's
it.
true.
No,
It's only sativas.
Yeah,
or
no
something.
sativas for Trump supporters. Just
Yeah.
indica.
Maybe
Yeah,
they
just sit
maybe they're
down.
just getting shake weed from Mexico.
Oh wow, I've had Mexican weed.
Dude.
Yeah,
that'd be
it's-
beautiful. Imagine he has like his own Papadop tunnel to Mexico that he's just getting all this cheap shake from.
dude, you know it.
He's running an operation with Trump where all the ICE guys who stop the weed that comes over through the ports of entry,
Oh,
not where we need a
snap.
wall.
It goes
he's
straight
getting
to
all them
C3
and they're making-
International.
and they're just grinding it down and adding water.
There you
making
go.
pills.
You heard it here
Yep.
first, guys.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
but what he'll do is he'll say, it's not supposed to get you high, so don't expect to feel high.
Exactly.
But you will feel very better.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they don't specify if this is CBD. I wonder, because like THC would make them high, but it is a pill. So.
Yeah, they don't say, which I thought was interesting.
Very
because I saw a
interesting.
cannabis company, and I'm like, are they
Mhm.
selling weed? Or are they selling...
It used to be a dispensary
CBD?
too, like a regular dispensary. The guy, the CEO of it, his name is Steele Smith. Which is yeah, that's his real
That's
name.
a good name.
Yeah, he said he chose Papadop because of the access that he provides to the company.
To Mexico.
the access to what?
I think the White House, because the guy's a big Trump
Mifsud?
supporter. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, maybe it's like, oh, if I've got an ally of Trump, they won't come knocking on my door.
Yeah, they found each other on LinkedIn, and he said he was attracted to Papadop because he's a conservative like him. So, love at first sight, I
John
guess.
Boehner's doing weed now.
Yeah, that's
Really?
right.
Yeah,
I
Boehner's
don't like
doing weed.
this. These
His eyes
geo-
did always look glassy.
You have to know that as soon as weed got legal in most states, that
They
a bunch
were
of rich
gonna-
white dudes are going to try to take it over. You're going to start hearing the word big weed.
versus the small businesses.
soon.
Yeah, you're totally right.
And if you want to get out ahead of that, start your own collective of anti-corporate weed. Weed.
This guy, he also Steele, he wants to be on Trump's board of like cannabis study groups. Like, so he like specifically mentioned that he wants to be on that panel. So he's like kissing Trump's ass, and he wants to work for the White House, and he's working with Papadop. So he's just happy to have someone that was close to Trump.
Well, if we can get Trump to overturn federal Schedule 1 shit.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. I think he's jumping the gun and doesn't really care about that. More so just wants to get in as big weed.
Yeah.
Before other people can get
honestly,
in.
Okay, here's just beans. Like, what if Trump did crack down on pot? Because pot's booming right now. Like, you can walk into it like the Apple store. It's so
Sessions
accessible.
is gone. He was the one cracking down on weed, and he's gone. So we have to figure out what Bill Barr is, where he stands.
Exactly. And from a business perspective, they might want to, like you said, edge out the small business. So, like, if they crack down, like Papadop was saying that this is going to be the first standardized weed, which makes me think that, like, maybe he's like, oh, when everyone else is out of the way, they'll have to come to us, because those prices are ridiculous.
Gross. Yeah.
People,
they'll be the Walmart of weed.
Exactly.
There needs to be a grassroots weed lobby called Weed the People.
Dude, that's beautiful. Totally.
Isn't that lovely?
We need that.
Weed for the people, by the people, weed the people.
I wonder, people are probably buying this though, because people bought Fire Festival tickets. So at first I was like, these prices.
Good. Yeah, people who can afford front row at NASCAR are buying the shit out of it.
Totally. Yeah.
Idrisil.
It's ridiculous.
Also, the Weed the People, that kind of sounds a little bit like ethnic cleansing or something. So I take back that name.
I never would have thought of it that way until you said
Weed out the people.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Wow. Don't give him ideas, Jordan.
Well, it depends on who you're weeding out. If we're weeding out Trump supporters.
Good point.
That's true.
I'd call the fuck out of that herd.
That's true, but historically we're all pacifists. So when I think about getting rid of people,
I'll punch a Nazi though.
I will.
All right, Jordan, how did that Trump interview go with the New York Times?
All right, here we go. Sorry.
And now for a segue.
Yes. So he sat down with the New York Times, the failing New York Times, as he calls it, on Thursday in the Oval Office. The interview started out pretty much with it was like a good interview. It was actually one of Trump's better interviews.
Wow. And you've been critical before.
He
so
seemed
like,
calm, didn't
he did.
Interesting.
Yeah, which, I mean, he still talks like a blubbering idiot, but
at least comparisons.
Yeah, like he
wasn't yelling.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, he didn't like Giuliani or anything, know. So the interview, they start out talking about trade deal negotiations that are happening with China right now. Trump saying like the talks are going well, nothing's set in stone, but he thinks they're going somewhere good. He said that they're, quote, they've done very successfully, which is not how you say words, but I digress. Peter Baker of the New York Times, he was one of the guys interviewing. He asked if the tariffs are going to still remain, to which Trump said yes, because he said, we wouldn't even be in these trade talks right now if the tariffs didn't exist in the first place. So they're just going to keep them to hold them over China's head forever, basically.
Wow.
And then Trump also had to take this chance to slip in that the World Trade Organization is the worst deal we've ever made, with the number 2 being, guess?
The Iran nuclear deal?
No, good guess though.
The NATO?
Close.
The Korean
NAFTA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Boom, ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Very nice.
Just going through all the best stuff ever.
Yep, NAFTA.
Sliced bread. The wheel.
Yeah.
Fire.
It's a cool Family Feud episode, though. I would love to see that, like a Mueller themed. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, we figured out what the Mueller dating site would be called.
Oh, what is it?
Mueller, Muellr.
Oh, I like that. I heard Resistor with an R too, but I like
but
Mueller.
that looks like sister.
Okay, so then Maggie Haberman, she was also there. She asked Trump if the stresses of this is great. She asked him if the stresses of the presidency have been too much on his family and if he's considering not running, which is like an amazing way to just be like, get the fuck out, bitch. We're fucking done with you.
That's the Maggie Haberman way of saying, have you even thought about this? It was like when the judge in Flynn's trial was like, did you guys think about charging him with treason? Like, was that even a thing? Because maybe you should look at that.
Yep, totally. Just slipping that idea into his brain. But then Trump obviously is like, no, I'm definitely running again. And he said that he wants to spend his whole next term rebuilding the military and focusing on national security, which also reads spending a lot of money.
McCain's NDAA was $916 billion. It's rebuilt. Like, I mean, I guess that's what the NDA has been forever, and nobody ever really dismantled the military. But
yes, but not enough money was specifically allocated to screwing brown people over.
Good point.
But he had enough to send 6,000 troops. That's 3 times as many that are in Afghanistan Syria, over to the border, to our southern border. So you know what? Cool, dude.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do also, I'm with you. I read that as complete bullshit and only, I can't imagine that it's going to go to the stuff that, a good Samaritan would hope it would go to. Like better planes. They have like super outdated planes and shit. People are like dying on fucking military plane trips going to trainings within our own country. It's like fucked up. Anyway, so he then goes on, Trump, to make the claim that this is great. He has an approval rating of 93% within the Republican Party, which would like normally blow my mind, and I'd scoff at that number, but I wouldn't put anything past the Mitch McTurtle-led lizard men. So
the number I've seen is 81.
Yeah, and so he's saying 93, also saying that it's higher than Reagan. He has to do a little jab at Reagan there.
Always.
He's then asked about who he thinks the Democratic front runner is right now, to which he responded, Kamala Harris.
He said that?
Yeah, he said it wrong.
Is that why he calls Nancy Pelosi Nancy, because he can't say Pelosi?
Oh, maybe. That's a good point.
I've heard that rumor.
Yeah.
So maybe he should just call her Harris. Dude, just call her Harris.
Yeah.
Kamala.
Yeah, Kamala Harris. And yeah, so the fact that he thinks she's a front runner, it probably means we can see some lock her up memes in the foreseeable future.
Oh, definitely.
Then they bring up the story about Kushner's security clearance and ask if Trump has ever directed anyone to basically force his clearance through. He said no, and that he has also never met any of the people that even do the security clearances, which sounds like that might be a meeting worth having, but I don't know about anything.
He put that guy in there. Oh.
Yeah. Then they move on to Mattis, and then Trump claims that he actually directed Mattis to give him a resignation letter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, I mean, obviously he can't break up with any sort of, like, dignity. He has to go out and, like, a shit-talking tour that no one's buying, but he just won't let it die, because he's, like, already up to, like, neck shit at that point. He just has to commit to it.
Neck depth shit.
Yes. So then in the middle of the interview, this is a great little part, an aide comes in and says that Trump has some very important calls when he's finished, and I'm pretty sure Trump orchestrated that interruption as a potential out number one, but also a time to say that he has important things happening, because he said important calls. Make sure you say important.
Yeah, he learned that from the last one, because he just kept going on and on. It was like, don't you have anything better to do, dude?
Yeah. and then he kissed the New York Times ass, which is weird. He's like, nothing's more important than the New York Times.
Yeah, what a weird turn.
The failing New York Times?
Yeah, the failing New York Times.
That one?
Yeah.
Maybe he think it was like Bob's New York Times. It's like a different one.
Support small business. Small New York Times.
Small New York Times.
They're in direct competition with like the big New York Times.
Yeah.
Wait, you're the New York Times? No, the small New York Times.
Yep, from the small apple.
That's how you get them, so they get the interview.
The small apple. Nice.
They're all worms. Okay. Then they move on to the topic of all the books that are coming out right now that are like insider views of how fucked up everything is in the administration. For example, Bob Woodward's Fear. And then he's talking about this, Donald Trump is, and then he turns to Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who apparently has been in the room the whole time, and when he's talking, and he says that it was his staff's fault that he never talked to Woodward before the book came out.
Yeah, but he had Kellyanne Conway on the call when Woodward was there, and Woodward's like, I talked to Kellyanne many times. And he's like, really? Kellyanne, get in here. And she's like, yeah, I talked to him, and I asked you about it, and you said no. And he's like, fuck you.
Yeah.
That's been settled.
Exactly. And then he just did the same thing to Sarah, just threw her under the bus completely. And then she just responds with like one sentence. She says, to this day, I have never spoken to him. It's like, it must be so annoying. Fucking, yeah. Annoying is
well,
the
nobody contacts
of the year.
Huckabee Sanders to get to Trump. I mean,
right.
God, he's a dipshit.
Yeah. So then they shift over to some more Mueller-related stuff specifically. Trump comes out of the gate running as soon as these questions start coming as fast as he can, saying that Stone never worked for his campaign. They start talking about Stone. Then the Times corrects him and says, yes, he did, back in the fall of 2015. And then Trump says, well, that was a long time. And I think he meant to say that was a long time ago, but he accidentally told the truth. So that was funny. Trump says he never had any conversations with Stone about WikiLeaks. Then the Times reminds him that that was actually in the indictment. And Trump says he didn't read the indictment. But if one did read it, they'd learn that there was no collusion with Russia. Because Trump apparently doesn't read. He just reads documents' minds. And that's how he knows their info's legit or something.
And that's literally the opposite of what it says.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you did read it, you would know that you can read. And I didn't. Thank you.
Yeah. he really opens himself up to some criticism, if I must say.
Yeah, but it never sticks to him, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So he says
Teflon Don.
he says that he respects Stone for saying that he wouldn't testify against him. Makes sense. But you could have guessed that from the Nixon tattoo on his back, that he wasn't going to turn against him. They then ask him about Trump Tower Moscow. Trump cannot say enough about how non-important that letter of intent to build was. He says talks as far as he knew ended early to mid-2016, but that even if he was building, he would have been allowed to build 20 buildings. And then he says George Washington ran a business when he was in office, and it was fine.
What?
Yeah, and then the New York Times were like, but isn't there...
He sold people daily. Nobody gave him any shit.
Yeah.
What business?
Seriously.
I don't know, but I didn't even look
George's
into it. I should have looked into it.
He sold apples or some shit.
I think the Times knew what he was talking about, though, because they responded with, there's a difference between a domestic business and potentially doing business with Russian figures.
Exactly.
/ adversaries.
I doubt Washington was working with the Russians.
Yeah, he was going to build Washington Tower in London.
Yeah, mainly because they had Washington Tower, London. He had to pedal for 50 hours in the water just to say one thing.
That's it. He made canoes.
Yeah, that's true. There was that whole picture.
That's a Delaware thing.
Oh yeah. So Trump, he said this quote about in response to them, making him answer to that ridiculous counter argument. He says, quote, "I have nothing. All I did was be a good candidate. Russia didn't help me. Russia did not help me. There was no collusion. There was none of that. I was a good candidate. I did a good job. I won't say whether she was a good candidate or not. I mean, the primary collusion was Hillary Clinton. If you take a look, Peter, look at that phony dossier. Some of that money, they say, went to Russia. Podesta was involved with Russia." There's too much. I'm done.
Yeah. Okay.
But I love the impression, though. It really puts you in the room, which is so frustrating to hear.
Yeah, I think we all could fill in the blanks of what he was going to say. So, finishing up really quick here. He then says that none of his deputy AGs have said that at any point he has been considered a target of the Mueller probe.
Right, including Rosenstein.
In
fact, Rosenstein told him he wasn't, right?
Right. But then...
no, that didn't happen. That's what Trump says.
Right. Yeah. And then he also says that... he admits
Snoop Dogg was wiretapping your ass. Don't even fucking tell me that.
Yeah, well,
sounds like a song. Snoop Dogg wiretapping your ass. Yeah, something about I'd tap that. Yeah,
yeah, that's really funny. He does admit though that Rosenstein did never explicitly say that SDNY's investigation did or did not label Trump as a target. So he did admit that he doesn't know. He doesn't know what's going on in SDNY.
Kind of, in a roundabout way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, he gets asked about Cohen's father-in-law threatening him. He's like, I didn't threaten him. I actually don't even remember exactly what I said, but I didn't threaten him.
Oh, no, he's pulling a Reagan. I don't recall.
Oh, yeah.
I don't recall.
Yes, basically.
Well.
And then they round out the interview talking about Pelosi and how he got totally dominated. And he says that he's just going to wait out this next funded period and then is fully prepared to declare a national emergency. So that's pretty much his plan. That's essentially what he said.
I think he might actually do it at State of the Union.
Oh, snap. Talk about a drama queen.
Oh, totally, dude.
Yeah.
That's so petty. He would for sure do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then he would talk about how Nancy wouldn't let him come, but he's here. And if F you, Nancy, I'm going to declare an emergency and build my wall since you wouldn't give it to me. And he's just going to sit there and poke the bear. And he'll lose. He'll lose.
It'll be the most partisan State of the Union address ever.
He's so weird. I'm interested to see if RBG shows up.
Oh, good point. Yeah.
Yeah, she's still recovering, so we'll see. All right, thanks, Jordan.
Thanks, dude.
You're welcome. Sorry that was long.
No, that's all right. It happens. This Wednesday, for my hot note, in a federal court filing, Mueller's team asked the judge to reject a motion filed by the lawyers in the Concord management case that would require Mueller to share sensitive evidence with them as part of discovery in preparation for trial. Usually during discovery, when information is sensitive, the judge would issue a protective order. And that would keep the defendant from sharing that information with the public. That's what they did Wednesday, for example, in the Stone case. Mueller filed all the evidence with the court and said that since a lot of it is sensitive, he asked for a protective order. But in the Russia case, it's Russia. Mueller Mueller doesn't want to give them sensitive United States, government documents and evidence that could reveal sources and methods, because they're going to end up in the hands of Yevgeny Prigozhin and the Kremlin. Then, as part of Russia's relentless attack on our democracy, the Russians from Concord Management took some non-sensitive discovery from Mueller, altered it, forged it, and used it as desinformatia to discredit the Mueller investigation. They had taken these documents and created an anonymous Twitter account and tweeted, "We have hacked Mueller and we have his reports, see them all here," and then posted a link to these reports that they made look totally boring and uneventful, completely doctored. And they did this in an effort to say Mueller has no evidence against Russia and discredit his investigation. And they reached out to American media companies to try to get them to run this story. That is classic active measures, classic desinformatia, which is Russian for disinformation measures, just so you know. Joining us today to discuss some past active measures so we can have a frame of reference is the writer and director of the documentary Active Measures, Jack Bryan. Jack, welcome back to Mueller, She Wrote.
Thanks for having me back.
So we know the Russians have a storied past of creating disinformation campaigns or disinformatia and reaching out to American media outlets to amplify their message and sow discord. And I was hoping you could give us some examples of this from the past.
Yeah, so this fits really well in line with what the then Soviets, now Russians, have been doing since the 1930s. But I think the most interesting example is from the 1980s, when they tried to make it look as though the CIA had manufactured the HIV virus. And it fits in line in that when they're doing a domestic active measures operation, usually their motivation is just to seed chaos, that you never really know where you are. But foreign active measures operations usually have two purposes. One is just to create fissures generally within that country that they're doing it against. And the other is to discredit somebody or some organization. And in this, it was to stoke racial tensions in America and to discredit the CIA. And the means that they did this was they basically planted in an African newspaper a story that the CIA had created it, and it got a little bit of traction. But when they started pushing that article to their networks in America, and they had some penetration, it seems, into Black Panthers and a few Black separatist groups, and they were attempting to sort of dial into this real grievance. So when they create a story, for example, the CIA created AIDS, it has to be something that is divisive. It dealt with race and AIDS. Specifically, the attempt to kill Black people with AIDS was the story. And so, because of America's racial history, it stoked up a lot of sentiment. That's obviously a touchstone. But also, there had been the Tuskegee experiments, and so there was a historical analog. So people could say, "Oh, that sounds like a thing that I know of that's similar," which is where American government basically didn't tell certain groups of Black men that they had syphilis in order to conduct experiments on them, and many of them went crazy or died from it. And so it had a historical analog. It is divisive. It's already calling into question a thing that already exists, a point of contention that already exists. And they used independent media to do this, so their hands are clean. Similarly, this is an attempt to sort of dismiss the FBI and saying that there is this sort of, they don't really have anything, and this is a sort of deep state attack. And because thus far, so much of what has come out of Mueller has allowed people to say, well, there's not quite on that piece of paper, it doesn't say, Roger Stone was talking to Russians. It doesn't say Russian collusion in that document. Therefore, this is not that big a deal. And so they can attach onto that idea that already exists. And that they can push this sort of divisive idea of a deep state operation against Trump despite not having any evidence. And so I think it's really important to remember that because of how much penetration that had. That was an operation that lasted for a couple of months or a couple of years in the 80s. And to this day, in surveys amongst African Americans, some showing somewhere between a third and half of African Americans in America believe the story that was started by Russian disinformation. And that was at a time that story was being pushed when they had very little penetration in America. They just had a few small newspapers, some organizations that they could attach themselves to, whereas now they have their own media channels in this country. And so that penetration, I think, goes even deeper than we realize.
So this isn't just the seeding chaos, because you said two purposes. This is more of like the weaponizing the information that they forged, in this case at least, from the Mueller investigation, and that aligns with their past practices of discrediting our justice system, FBI, CIA, etc.
Yeah, it's both. I mean, it's one and the same, and it almost has to be, because you have to be, and it's not just cleverness. I mean, you have to be hitting the things that people know about. You know what I mean? Like, if you and I were like, let's do an information operation campaign against India, and we were like, well, we're only going to pick, things that are important to Catholics, it would have zero penetration. You have to figure out what's already there, pick an institution that you kind of want to discredit, and you can use that to create chaos.
Okay, so the Mueller probes kind of become a wedge issue, like how the Russians were trying to infiltrate using gun rights issues through the NRA or religious organizations, for example, like the prayer breakfast.
Exactly. And the fact that they're using it in that way, I think, is fascinating. And that they're glomming on, and what it's going to do if they're successful, and if they continue to will be successful about it, is to fuel this identity of me thinking that the Mueller investigation is a bunch of BS is part of my personal identity. In the same way that me being a gun owner is part of my personal identity.
Yeah, well, I definitely love that the American media outlets that were contacted just immediately contacted the Mueller probe and the Department of Justice. They were like, hey, here's what's happening. And so I feel like at least we're learning.
Mm-hmm. And also Mueller, I mean, he was it an indictment, or in some capacity, he basically mentioned that they were trying to discredit him directly by trying to hire women to say it sexually harassed him. I see this as similar, but basically the same operation, probably a different leg of the same operation.
Right, so it might not be past Russian active measures that gave us the heads up, but that fake disinformation saying that Mueller had sexually harassed women, which is more recent and more fresh in our memories, that might have been like, you know what, I'm going to talk to Mueller about this. This doesn't seem right.
Yeah, and I don't know sorry, I should mention, I don't know that that's related in any way, but it sounds like a very similar thing. Beyond feeling, that's totally within their wheelhouse. So I would be very not surprised if that were a different leg of the same operation, I should say.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on today and helping us kind of build a frame of reference about sort of these Russian active measures. I really appreciate your time. Can you tell everybody where they can find your documentary?
Absolutely. Active Measures is on iTunes and Amazon and any place you can get DVDs or VOD.
All right, awesome. Everybody, writer and director of Active Measures, Jack Bryan. Jack, thanks again for coming on Mueller, She Wrote.
Thanks again for having me.
So, guys, it appears that the very thing Mueller was prosecuting Russia for, or is prosecuting Russia for, is precisely what the Russians did during the Concord Management case.
Wow.
And it seems as though Russia and Concord Management, who would normally ignore this kind of indictment, usually when you indict Russians, they just ignore it, they purposefully hired an American lawyer to use our judicial system to gather documentary evidence to use in a disinformation campaign to discredit the investigation into their own meddling. That is brazen as fuck, you guys. Mm-hmm. And I thought when Manafort violated his gag order by writing that op-ed with the Russian, I thought that was balls. But this is astounding. And given the lawyers for Concord Management, these are the ones, by the way, who talked about how Mueller's documents can't be that important because he confiscated a nude selfie, and he quoted cartoons and movies a lot, and he said fuck in one of his court filings. Anyhow, those guys, they're fucked. And I wouldn't be surprised if additional superseding charges are filed against Concord Management for this abuse of the courts. I'd like to see that, and I'd also like to see these lawyers punished. These are American lawyers. At least disbar these motherfuckers for either willfully participating or not knowing they were being Russian assets in a legit Active Measures disinformation campaign. I'm pissed, you guys. You do not fuck with our judicial system, and Trump is doing nothing to stop them from this shit. He has spent $0 of the dollars allocated to protect us from Russian meddling, obviously because it helps him. Discrediting the Mueller probe is about to be Trump's full-time job, and there's no way he can win an election without the Russians. So I'm pissed about this. Imagine how Mueller feels about this.
Yeah, would they even be able to do it in the same case, or would they have to do like a whole? Because the lawyer that their special counsel is going against, he's part of that. So can they even keep him as counsel? Can they just switch counsel over to someone that's not going to be indicted in superseding indictments?
The Russians?
Right.
I
The
don't think
American
that
lawyers that were working for the Russians.
Well, I don't think the Russians give a shit about this case, and they don't need a lawyer, and they only got these guys to get to these documents.
Yeah.
I don't even think they give a fuck.
They just said, they just responded, like you said, just to get them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they might want to, maybe they'll get a new lawyer and try it again, but I really think that this is a problem. And I think Mueller recognizes it as a problem, and that's why he put this investigation and the evidence that he found in investigating this disinformation campaign out there. And I hope that there are consequences for that.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do superseding indictments on Concord management. They're not going to show up in court. So.
Right.
And I wish we could just redo the election.
Me too.
Or call it illegitimate and put all of his laws and executive orders and SCOTUS appointments out.
Yeah.
And we're still waiting to hear if Russia was even able to change the actual vote count. That's still a question. Jeez. It's just such a clusterfuck. Anyway, I'm mad. Sorry. I love you. We'll be right back. Hey, Mueller junkies. This is AG, and I'm here to say thank you for listening. We wouldn't be here without you, and we can't thank you enough. That's it. Have a wonderful week. Are you guys ready for Sabotage?
Yes.
Guys, the sabotage this week is that there was no sabotage this week. The news was really quiet on Friday in the probe because of a pretty bad storm in D.C. It was snowing really hard. And we thought for sure that because of there were 4 new sealed indictments Thursday night on the D.C. docket. Well, 2 went up Thursday. The other 2 went up the 23rd and 24th. And they all have the designation CR, which indicates a potential indictment. I don't know why, don't ask. And 2 were flagged in a way that suggests they're indictments with B green flags or something like that. So this is all information that I got from an expert who reads these court dockets. So those sealed indictments and the rumors that the grand jury met on Thursday again, though I don't have proof of that, these are just rumors from the ground, made me think that there would be a felony Friday. But nope. The big news actually Friday was Governor Northam, which we talked about a little bit. The Virginia governor exposed for the photo in his medical school yearbook when he was 25 in 1984, dressing up in blackface or a KKK outfit. We don't know which one was him. Now he's saying neither one was him, but he did go in blackface for Michael Jackson. Weird. Everybody wants him to resign, including myself. There's a bunch of folks saying, hey, we all did dumb shit in college, and we're lucky we didn't have social media. You're lucky you didn't have social media. Bullshit. We did not all dress up in blackface and KKK robes, and I'm tired of old white dudes telling me I was so much of a shithead in college. I was not. You were. That's your problem.
Yeah, it's called projection.
Yeah, fuck you. I did not do anything like that. They're like, oh, you'd be glad you didn't, that there wasn't Twitter. I was going to say a bunch of racist fucking shit in fuck
right.
you.
Yeah.
I'm getting mad at those. Well, you should be lucky. Mm-hmm. No, you're a dick. Maybe you're a dick. I don't know.
I want to see him moonwalk for his seat, resign or moonwalk,
dance for your life.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be so great.
That's how we'll settle things from now on.
We should do that for presidential elections.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
Are you guys ready for the Fantasy Indictment League?
Yes.
I'm gonna be indicted!
No, wait, it's gonna be okay.
Indicted!
Honey, Dick.
Indicted!
Honey.
I'm gonna be indicted!
Hold it, they can't. It's gonna be okay. Just calm down.
I can't calm down, I'm gonna be indicted!
All right, guys, Wednesday, we got some more clues about the secret company from Country A fighting Mueller in the secret subpoena battle royale. Let me read you my thread on this so I can connect all the dots for you. I'm going to pull it up here on Twitter. You can check it out there. I like it because, a lot of it will sound familiar to you, but there's a couple of new things that came out this week.
Yeah.
And a couple of big clues.
It's like Blue's Clues. I love it.
and they're not just sort of important. They're massively important clues. So it has now been confirmed as of this week that the attorneys from Mueller's office are involved in the super secret subpoena battle involving a state-owned company from Country A. A new unsealed court filing shows Meisler and Ahmed are handling the case, and this is huge, and here's why. First of all, I've long thought that the company is the Qatar Investment Authority, or QIA, because it meets all the clues that we've gotten so far through various court filings that are super redacted, but there's these little clues in minute orders and filings that remain unredacted. Like, for example, we know it has a U.S. office, and we know it does substantial business in the United States, and we know that it's state-owned, and we know that it's foreign. And the Qatar Investment Authority fits all those. And my first clue was that Ahmed was working on the case. She speaks Arabic, and she worked on the Flynn case. And one of the heads of QIA, Al Rumehi, met with Flynn Jr. and Cohen in Trump Tower in December of 2016. And we have photo evidence of that from Avenatti. And Al Rumehi bragged a year later that he had bribed the Trump administration in a deposition. You see, Al Rumehi was being sued by Ice Cube for $1.2 billion for failing to fund a new basketball league of his. And in a court filing, Ice Cube's partner said that Al Rumehi asked him to tell Steve Bannon that Qatar would fund Breitbart since the Mercers dumped Bannon. Remember when the Mercers were like, fuck you, because Bannon broke up with Trump, and then he didn't have any funding for Breitbart? Apparently, Al Rumehi told Ice Cube's business partner to tell Steve Bannon that QIA would fund Breitbart. And Ice Cube's partners said no, and then Al Rumehi said, everybody does it. Do you think Flynn turned down our money?
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So there's that. And the Steele dossier says there was a plan to sell 19% of Rosneft. That's a giant Russian oil company. It was private or public, and they were going to sell it off to generate a commission for Trump to lift Obama's sanctions. That's what was in the Steele dossier. There's 19% they were going to sell off and give 0.5% in commission to Trump. In return, he was supposed to lift the sanctions Obama put on him. And December 1st, 2016, Cush and Flynn tried to set up a back channel to Russia. Then 6 days later, QIA and Glencore bought 19% of Rosneft. 5 days after that, Al Rumehi met with Cohen and Flynn Jr. at Trump Tower. And get this shit, it was confirmed this week that the firm representing the company from Country A is Alston & Bird. And while it's true they've represented many Russians in the past, I found out they also represented Glencore in the past. Glencore is the Swiss mining company that managed the sale of Rosneft to Qatar. The owner of Rosneft was Igor Sechin, by the way, who Carter Page met, and he said he met in one of his trips to Moscow. But here's the new thing. The other Mueller lawyer on the case is Meisler, and he's the guy who worked on Manafort's case. And as we know, Manafort was pitched to Trump and the Trump campaign by a guy named Tom Barrack. And get this, Barrack is being investigated for his fishy deals with QIA. Shortly before the election, Barrack called for a, quote, radical historic shift in the U.S. outreach to the Arab world and the brilliant young leaders in UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. And of course, we know how much money Qatar has given to Kushner, bailing him out of the albatross known as 666 Fifth Avenue, where incidentally Manafort met with Kilimnik to give his private briefings used to pay his debt off to Oleg Deripaska, who just had his sanctions lifted by the GOP. So, for all these reasons, I'm sticking with the Qatar Investment Authority, QIA, which I think is what's hidden under that redacted line in the court filing.
All right.
I could be totally wrong.
Is that your first pick?
My first pick? No. This is for, you know how we do separately for Company A?
Yes.
So this is just you reaffirming your company pick?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
No, it's not my first pick.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get me to give up my first pick. You know what I'm fucking saying for my first pick. You watch yourself. Go to Twitter to find that thread. I posted the screenshots I found of Glencore being represented by Alston & Bird. And again, this is complete speculation. I could be totally wrong. This is based on a handful of facts. Super space beans. I know nothing, but I love guessing. So thank you for indulging me. So guys, so for a fantasy indictment league, we have our 5 that we draft. And then we have this one special wild card thing where you get to pick who the company is from Country A. Mm-hmm. So we've confirmed that it is Mueller's team that's handling the case. It's Ahmed, which we knew, but now there's Meisler. So put some beans on QIA on my wild card. If you think about all those connections, plus the fact that Qatar, do you guys remember when Qatar stopped assisting special counsel Mueller against Kushner because it didn't want to face backlash from Trump?
Yeah.
That sounds like you might need to subpoena them for those documents. And that Flynn's supplemental court filing, remember where Flynn talked about how he cooperated? One of the 3 main investigations he was assisting Mueller with, one said Trump-Russia, one said the Turkey stuff, and the other one was a completely redacted investigation that we know nothing about. And that could be this. The Qatar and Glencore sale of Rosneft that the dossier said Trump was supposed to get about 0.5% from, that's $280 million, by the way, in exchange for lifting sanctions. Not to mention, remember when the judge in the Flynn case, we just talked about this earlier in the episode, he's only seen the unredacted documents, asked Mueller's team if they'd consider charging him with treason? Mm-hmm. Maybe that's this. And finally, we learned from this latest filing that it was Mueller that's asking to keep this secret, not the company from Country A.
All right.
That says a lot. So, QIA. Now, given everything that went down this week, I get to pick first. And
Nice.
I'm going to start with superseding Stone indictment.
Okay,
nice.
very
Okay.
cool.
Yeah, that's good.
You're cool with that. You're like, oh, that's better. I thought it was going to be something else.
That's good.
Hold on. Let me get my little pad here so I can write these down.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to take Junior.
Fuck! God damn it. All right.
What do you got?
Assange.
And if it makes you feel better, I think it's too soon for Junior because he's not going to be able to hand the official transcripts over until Tuesday, and they're probably not going to get them until Friday. But you never know. So you got Assange. Good one.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to go with Erickson.
Nice.
Corsi plea.
Corsi plea deal. Good.
Credico plea deal.
All right. Let's see here. Superseding Manafort.
Nice.
You'll have to let me know if I'm pronouncing this wrong. I probably am. Boryarkin?
Oh, Boyarkin.
Boryarkin.
Forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Bannon.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Plea agreement or straight up indictment?
Straight up indictment. Actually,
Considering he shares a lawyer with Priebus and McGann.
yeah, I'm gonna do plea agreement. Plea deal.
All right, so we each have 3. Let's see. I'm gonna go with Nunberg plea agreement.
Ooh.
Every time.
Yes.
That's, by the way, that's Yoda rolling himself over in his cosmic grave.
I will do Eric Prince.
All right, I'm gonna do Ivanka.
All right. I'm going to go with Mueller plea agreement.
Nice. Think he's winding down. He's gonna chill the fuck out a little bit.
After that Stone came out, and he's going to testify before the grand jury, it's just going to behoove him, Corsi, Credico, Nunberg, all these guys.
Yeah. Trump.org.
Cool. And you get one more.
I'm doing Veselnitskaya.
Like superseding? Or just in the Mueller investigation?
Yeah, because that other one, did we let that count? We didn't, right? Because it was unrelated.
No, because it was in a civil case about some shit from a long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got our 5. Make sure to pick your 5 and post them on the secret Facebook group called Friends of Justice. You have to be a patron to join that. To be a patron, go to patreon.com/MuellerSheWrote. So this has been the Fantasy Indictment League. I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be a crazy week. Whether indictments drop or not, we've got a lot of testimony happening.
Mm-hmm.
And again, look for declaration of emergency at. I got beans on declaration of emergency at the SOTU, the State of the Union.
When is that happening?
Tuesday.
Okay.
And I've got beans on Whittaker not testifying on Friday if Barr gets confirmed somehow before then.
Okay, makes sense. We should do a drinking game for the State of the Union.
Oh God. Oh.
Tuesday.
But I have to work Wednesday.
Yeah. Good point.
Drink. Yeah, I'll do a drinking game. Drink if someone says something smart, and then I have to worry about it.
I'm planning on being hungover from tomorrow or today when this drops for the next week.
Yeah.
So no drinking games for the State of the Union for me. I'm a big Patriots fan.
Oh,
Nice.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Did you see that kid at the science fair did a project?
Yeah, and he won.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Proving that.
Whatever. Get over it, punk ass.
Do you know he's a Trump friend and fan? Tom Brady?
Well, I've seen allegedly.
No.
His past is rocky with that for sure. Yeah.
He's dating a woman named Giselle.
Yeah? What does that mean?
I don't know. Nothing.
Yeah. It's really, I think their owner is more so the guy that has any sort of real loyalty to Trump in any way.
Oh, yeah.
All those rich white dudes, they just know each other.
That's true. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's a rich white dude club.
But yeah.
Wow, go Rams. Anyway, guys, next we have the interview, and I'm really excited about this. I got to talk to Renato Mariotti. He is the host of On Topic podcast. As you'll hear in the interview, he's going to talk a little bit about that. So let's take a listen. Joining us for the interview today is former federal prosecutor, and he's a CNN legal analyst, and he's the host of the On Topic podcast, really incredible podcast. I'd like to welcome back Renato Mariotti to Mueller, She Wrote. Renato, welcome back to the show.
Great to be back.
So I put out a tweet this week when we found out that, 29 FBI officers in heavy gear came in and escorted Mr. Stone. They knocked first, but they escorted him out of his home in Florida. And I had heard that he had a $250,000 bail set, but he didn't actually have to put up any money. Basically, the deal was, from my understanding, my limited understanding, is that as long as he showed up to court, he was fine. It's like he signed for it or something, and he didn't have to pony up any dough. And my tweet was, I think that that's weird that the richer you are, the less you have to put up front to get yourself out of jail and walking free. So you're a former federal prosecutor. You know a lot more about the law than I do, and I was hoping maybe you could talk to us a little bit about bail, what that means, and how it happened.
Sure. So I'll start with talking about how bail works in the federal system, and then we can talk about how the state system is different, because I think that most people's experience with bail and the bail system is how state courts work, which can be very different depending on where you live. But I have some...
Yeah, I guess most of us have not been picked up on any federal offenses.
There you go. So the way it works on federal charges is that when somebody's picked up, they are brought before the judge, depending on how you're charged. It may be a district court judge, it may be a magistrate judge, but you're brought before a federal judge, and that judge the judge has to determine whether or not you'll be released. And the presumption is generally that you will be released, and that the most permissive possible conditions will be set by the judge. In other words, the judge has to pick the least restrictive means possible to ensure that you're going to appear for future appearances, and that the public will be protected during the time that you are on pretrial release. And that there's various ways in which, if there's certain types of offenses, that presumption can change, but that's the main presumption. So
I suppose it's the public will be protected from the kind of crimes that person may commit against the public, not like fashion crimes, for example.
Exactly right. So, usually that concern is, for example, when there's violent crimes that have been charged, the person, might be a gang member. They might have, other something else that suggests that they may be a violent person, or they may endanger the public. And then, flight is the other big concern that presents itself. So,
Okay, so I'm thinking of when Manafort's bail was revoked, they wanted him to stop kind of suborning perjury from other witnesses, and that was kind of his danger, was that he was interfering with the investigation.
Well, the difference there was he already had conditions set, and he violated them. So there, the judge was determining that she could not trust him to continue abiding by the terms of his release. And so therefore, she ended up deciding that he was going to continue to break the law if he was out on pretrial release. And so there was no conditions that she could fashion that would prevent him from continuing to commit crime. On the front end, a judge is trying to figure out really two things. One, do I have to be concerned that this guy is going to continue committing crimes while out on supervised, or excuse me, on pretrial release? And second of all, is this person a danger to and is this person going to flee? And I will just say, one thing that tends to happen in federal court, when I'm giving analysis to you guys, I'm not telling you how the law should be. I'm talking about how the law is. And I would just say that typically in a white-collar case like this one, Stone has already been subpoenaed for various documents or a subpoena to appear, usually as a lawyer. And typically these folks have some sort of community ties and something to lose if they flee the United States. So often, in most cases, and frankly in most federal cases that I investigated and prosecuted, the person got a bond that was an own recognizance bond, which is the kind of bond that he got where he just signed his name, promised that he'd pay a certain amount if he violated the conditions, but didn't actually put any money up.
Okay, and it's different from how state courts operate because, at least from, I think, the system that we are all a little more familiar with, because, like I said, a lot of us don't get picked up for federal offenses. You go in, your bail is set, and somebody has to make a percentage of that payment, as a promise that you'll appear, and if you don't, the rest of it is charged to you.
Exactly right. In the federal system, there is sort of a potential to have that a secured bond. What I was talking about, the OR bond, the own recognizance bond, is an unsecured bond. It's possible to have a secured bond, and that's usually where there's some sense that the guy might flee. This is usually a situation where it's a risk of flight, and so you come up with a bunch of conditions where he wears an ankle bracelet and puts his home up, or puts some amount of money up. That's roughly what the Manafort situation was. But in the state court, that having a bond where part of it is paid up front is the norm. And I will just say there's major reforms underway around the country because a lot of people, I think rightfully, have viewed this as not only unfair, but totally against the public interest, because many more people are being detained simply because they can't come up with that cash up front. So in the county I live in, Cook County, in the city of Chicago, our state's attorney has been trying to reform that bond system to try to make it more like the federal system.
Yeah, I've been hearing sort of pushes for that no cash bail thing. It does become untenable in a lot of situations, and so that's kind of what triggered my tweet at first. I was like, why does this guy get to just go home and promise, especially when he has the money to put up, and then there's the rest of us who have to somehow come up with this money, which we lose, and then we can't just promise. Like, for some reason, white-collar criminals have a stronger, word than we do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, as a practical matter, there are a lot of reasons for folks to believe that white-collar criminals get better treatment, right? They often have they have great attorneys. They often know about the investigation as it's ongoing. They report usually instead of getting arrested in the way that Stone was, et cetera. Some of that is due to the fact that they are usually investigated by the feds versus the state. Some of it is because of the type of crime. In other words, usually these are folks where where they're at, who they are. The issue is just is what they were doing in their business a crime. Whereas a lot of the crimes violent crimes or drug crimes, everyone knows that selling heroin is illegal. Everyone knows that, robbing a bank is illegal. It's just the question is, were you the person who did it? So it's a different type of crime.
Right, but you got to sit in jail while we try to figure it out or give us money.
Yeah, there you go. It's not a fair system necessarily, but I'm just reporting the facts.
Exactly. You're not here to tell us how it should be. You're here to tell us how it is. And so I appreciate that very much. I think they're just moving ahead full steam. And one more time, can you let everyone know where they can get your podcast, On Topic?
Absolutely. So you can get On Topic. You can just search for On Topic or my name, Renato Mariotti, and you can get it on any major podcast app. It's in the iTunes store on Apple, but it's also in Stitcher and Pocket Casts and all the Android stores. So we'll have, I think, more great episodes to come in the days ahead.
Awesome. Yeah, it's only going to get more interesting from here. So former federal prosecutor, CNN legal analyst, and host of On Topic podcast, Renato Mariotti, thank you for coming on Mueller, She Wrote.
Anytime. Thank you.
All right, guys, that's our show this week. This is where we thank you all and tell you all to register to vote. We're going to start now, and we're not going to let up. Vote for whoever wins the Dem nomination, even if you aren't 100% with them. Anyway, guys, any parting thoughts before we head out?
Just stay warm and dry because the weather's been crazy everywhere.
Hey, listen.
Be safe.
Listen.
No rain.
Yeah, the rain stopped a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, guys, again, thanks for listening. We love you. We love your support, and we support the hell out of you. So don't forget that. I've been AG.
I've been Jaleesa Johnson.
I've been Jordan Coburn.
And this is Mueller, She Wrote. Mueller, She Wrote is produced and engineered by AG with editing and logo design by Jaleesa Johnson. Our marketing consultant and social media manager is Sarah Lee Steiner, and our subscriber and communications director is Jordan Coburn. Fact-checking and research by AG, and research assistance by Jaleesa Johnson and Jordan Coburn. Our merchandising managers are Sarah Lee Steiner and Sarah Hirschberger Valencia. Our web design and branding are by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios, and our website is MuellerSheWrote.com.